Hi, I'm Kevin Rutherford. Welcome to RG's Talent Tips. Today I'm going to share part 2 of how to gain C-level buy-in. Now, if you haven't watched the first video, please stop and go watch it now. What I'm sharing with you today is a repeatable sequential framework. And without applying the foundational knowledge, the techniques and tools that we covered in part 1, your C-suite pitch success will likely be less effective. So I encourage you, do the prep work and reap the benefits. Now, as a quick recap on part 1, we focused on identifying and understanding what matters most to each C-level stakeholder and then using that information to gain approval for our project. The ultimate objective was to know their unique blend of really goals, values, and knowledge, and to allow that insight to shape each stakeholder's messaging. So let's dive right in. Now, it's time to roll everything up and create an informed, targeted pitch or presentation to the key stakeholders. The goal is to engage the minds and the hearts of the key stakeholders to persuade and gain their approval. Earlier I said I wanted you to think like a CFO. Now I want you to switch gears a little bit and think like a movie producer. I want you to perfect the big picture with storytelling. Given your data, your research, your interviews, and your expertise on the subject, what's the story that you're going to tell? Tell the C-suite team how this initiative, this policy, this move, or this change is going to affect people. And when I say people, specifically I mean employees, customers, shareholders, and the general public. What's the long-term effect or potential opportunity? Give them a visual picture. Paint that picture. Execs want examples of the value that your project can bring to the organization. And to paint that ideal picture, I created a set of case studies based on 7 scenarios to really help you nail the presentation. It's one that I've been using for years. So let's take a quick look here on the whiteboard. And I want to share with you kind of that strategy, right? Because I know that if I can craft the right message with the right stories, and in the right sequence, I can persuade and influence execs with ease. So let's walk through each one now. So the first one here is what we call the strategy alignment case. Your project needs to align with your organization's strategies and goals. This is the most important step for getting the top execs on board with your idea. Because C-level execs are unlikely to listen to any proposal that does not match their own ambitions. No matter the direction of the project, tie it to the company's objectives to make it more appealing to the C-suite. Next, we look at what we call the business ROI, or return on investment. Equally as important as alignment is really determining the potential ROI. Look at ROI based on cost reductions, cost avoidance, or revenue gains. Most projects should result in some type of revenue gains, either directly or indirectly. Reducing labor or increasing input helps improve gross profit margins. And the project may also generate new revenue by increasing sales. Now, if you need help in calculating the ROI, reach out to someone in your finance department. In fact, I strongly suggest that you do that. Because you can say that the ROI was calculated with finance's help. Leverage their credibility. We don't always get that in HR, so leverage theirs. Next thing we look at is what we call the experiential case. Often execs want to know that you have experimented with the initiative or done a dry run test and have some data to support some level of what we call proof of concept. Remember the CFO factors that we talked about earlier. High success rate, low risk of failure, and consequences of failure built in. So here you have 2 choices. Your experiments that you do internally or experiments that others have conducted. Tell them what you've done, how it worked or didn't, what you learned, what you changed as a result, and how have either the results improved or have they languished. Is the trend line going up quickly or steadily? Do you want to show progress and results? Make sure that they understand what the impact is. Next thing that we want to look at is what we call the emotional tie-in case. And this is one that really goes to the heart. People love stories. They don't have to be long, but they can often illustrate a point and create credibility much more than just bare statements or we're still statistics. Now, when you have a few stories, and be sure obviously that you use true ones, this is the place to use them. Think about specific instances that you may have had in the past that went well or did not go so well for each individual stakeholder. That's the key. Remember, you're messaging for them. Share them with those that you are expected to be in that negative column. Those are the people that you really want to hit with the stories. Next, for example, you could say, ask an exec, remember when we implemented the XYZ project? It was a challenge, but the result that you and your department got was either, let's say, great, or it was disastrous because we failed to act. You really want to make them feel the pain, right? You want to make them feel that pain. Next is what we call the comparative case. And here what we want to do is think about almost every CEO in the world. Their performance is based on two things: how well they did against their own numbers, and then how did they do against their competitors or peer group. So if you're exploring a major initiative or project or change, there's a good chance that your company's competitors may be exploring similar projects with comparable features to yours. Be a detective here. Do some serious digging. You need that information. Perform in-depth analysis of your industry and look for projects using similar technologies or practices. Use it to tap into the emotional side of leaders. I'll never forget, I remember one presentation that I did, there were no competitors on the horizon for the project that we were proposing. And the CEO said, so you're saying to me that we would be the first to market with this? I said, yes. And he said, great, we're done here. I want to launch this right now. I want to step on their neck and crush them while we can. You gotta love that from a CEO. The next thing that we look at is what we call the no change case. And I say this one for the end because it's a powerful push to get execs to make a decision. If we do nothing, here is what happens. It could be things like executing on our strategic objectives will take us 4 months longer. Or it could be the cost to implement this project will be higher because we're looking at advantages right now and huge dips in the market, and that's going to give us a quick financial advantage. It could also be something like the competition is likely to implement this before us, and we may lose market share. But whatever examples you choose to demonstrate your case, just make sure that they are pertinent to you and to your initiative. You want to hit trigger buttons for them, pain points to be more specific. You want them to feel like if they don't act now, the opportunity will pass them by. And there will be pain for not acting now. And then lastly, we look at the continual case. And this is one that I use to reinforce their confidence in their decision or to keep them abreast of what's happening while we're waiting for them to make a decision. This is my last resort, right? Because it shows that we're serious about looking for ways to improve results and value. We should be pinging them twice a month on what's the new status, meaning what's new, what's changed, in whatever form of communication that they do prefer. One last thing, you need to be transparent about your results because not everything is going to be perfect. You may be on target, off target, but continually refine your projections as you go. So now let's take a moment and imagine, if you will, you're sitting in a C-level meeting making your pitch. So here's how that conversation might go. So let's say that we're trying to propose using AI technology in our recruiting because our organization is going into a new marketplace, which is the European market, going global in the European market. So the first thing that we look at is the strategy alignment case. I may say something to the execs like this. As you all know, next 3 years we have a huge initiative to grow globally, particularly in the European market. And one of the things that we need to do that is to be able to find competent, qualified staff. We have done our research and we are proposing today to use AI technology with our current recruiting systems, which will enable us to hire better candidates, cheaper and faster than we've ever been able to do so before, which will allow us to not only meet those goals of hiring and expanding globally in the European market, but more than likely exceed them, get them there faster, get up to speed quicker. So that's touching on that strategy alignment case. They want to know, does this tie to the strategy? Next thing they want to know is, how much is this going to cost, and is it going to be worth my investment? Well, here what you want to say is, in doing this, we put together a return on investment analysis. We actually looked at what was the cost of the AI software versus what we thought we were going to get in terms of benefits. And as a matter of fact, we tied in our partners from finance with us to help us create the calculations that we need to look at our return on investment. And what we found is we're going to have about a 210% return on investment, and our payback period is going to be just over 7 months, which to us, given that the organization's typical payback period is 12 months or sooner, this hits right in that sweet spot. Then the next thing that we look at is what we call that experiential case. And here what we might say is something like this. In doing our research on the AI technology, one of the things that we found was that they were having some success in not only the tech industry, which we kind of expected, but they were also having success in the financial markets industry. And when we did that research, we said, you know what, we ought to try and do this. So we went to our vendor and we got the vendor to give us a 30-day trial, and we actually did a little pilot project of this. We launched it in Belgium, and what we found is we had tremendous success in terms of hiring better candidates, cheaper and faster than we've ever done before. In fact, almost twice as fast, about half as much, and quickly hitting our targets. So we're really excited about that number. So we look at both external candidates that have done this, or external companies that have done it, and we also have a test project inside to show that this works. Next thing that they want to know is what's going on with the competition, right? So we say, what's going on with my competitors? What's going on with competitor A, competitor B, competitor C? And that's where you want to say, in doing our research, when we looked across the global market, we know that competitor A, competitor B, and competitor C do nothing like this. They aren't using AI as part of their recruiting success thus far. So we would actually be one of the first to market. And given the fact that we've run some experiments and it's also worked in other industries, we feel pretty confident that we're going to get a chance to have a leg up on our competitors, because we know that they want to grow, and some of them are actually already in that European market. We think this is going to help us hit the ground running and get an advanced jump on the competitor marketplace. And then the other thing that I talked about here, I kind of skipped over, but I want to touch on, is that what we call the emotional tie-in piece. Remember I said earlier, what they really want to know is this going to work, and how do I feel about it? This is more about feelings. So here we may want to say something like, John, 3 months ago we had this particular project that came up, and we proposed it, and you were good enough to say, hey, this makes sense on paper, this makes sense to me, therefore I want to do a test project. We ran a pilot project in your area, and guess what? We had tremendous success. And remember how that made you feel and how quickly we were able to get up to speed. You were able to exceed your targets. So again, that's a positive case that shows that if they sign on board with us, it's good. Now on the flip side of that, you could go to the negative and say, Mary, you remember when we were looking at putting in this particular project or doing this particular thing in your area, and we decided, you know what, now wasn't the right time. We thought we needed to wait. And we actually waited, we kept waiting, and we waited about 5 months before we were actually able to put it in place. And then she says, yes, I remember that. Well, remember what would have happened, and we both talked about this out, what would have happened had we put this project in sooner? We would have hit the ground quicker, we would have had faster success. So again, use both positive and negative stories, but make it specific to those individuals that are, again, your messaging that are negative in that negative column that we talked about earlier. Now, lastly, and this is one that I generally, again, save for the end, is that no change case. Here, what I'm basically want to get them to do is to act. Now that I've laid out for you that this project ties into our strategy, that there is a business case ROI that's positive for this, we have quick payback period, we have a good ROI, and that we've tested this internally on our own. We've seen similar success in other industries, and we've had success in demonstrating these things before, and that we know our competitors are not doing this. Basically what I'm saying here is now, Why aren't we ready to go? We need to make a move. So here what we say is, at this point, gentlemen, we've laid out the case for you. Assuming that everything is here, we should be able to make a decision today. Because if we wait, what we've seen is that our price might go up and the ROI might not be as positive. We've seen that our competitors, A, B, and C, have done nothing thus far, but once they catch wind of we're doing some of this testing in the marketplace, they too may jump on it. So if we wait and we act, it may cost us more or we may lose competitive advantage in the marketplace. So I encourage you today, based on what we have here, to let's make a decision to invest in AI technology for us to support our strategic initiatives going forward. And then shut up, okay? Now, if they say, now's not the right time, maybe we want to wait, that's when you come back here to the continual case. You continual case and you say to them, okay, I understand. There are concerns that you have. Let's see if we can address them. We've got another 30 days, 60 days probably tops, or the window's going to close. So we're going to go back and reevaluate. If you think we should do another test in another market, maybe another country or another area, we can do that as well. But tell us what you need in order to make that decision today, other than what we've provided for you here. Now you're putting them right on the spot. And if they do give you some suggestions, take them and say, we're going to come back here in 30 days and give you reports. We're going to tell you how well we've done here, and then what is the new stuff. Remember I said report on the new. Give them all the new. So ultimately, what you see here, when you combine all of this, you combine part 2 with the part 1 that we talked about, laying out who the stakeholders are and what needs to happen, identifying them, you now have a detailed and proven framework to gain C-level buy-in. But the reality is no set of prescriptions, even mine, can capture the nuances of every environment or remove the risk and disappointments of some of your stakeholders. But those who routinely and effectively use these tactics enjoy much greater success than those who don't. Trust me, I've been using this for decades. Now, I wish you much success in your next C-level pitch. And if you try it, please let me know how it turned out for you. Drop a note in the comments section below. I love hearing how things work for you. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something that you can apply right away. If you did and want more, please subscribe to our channel below and check out our website for even more content, handouts, and free tools that'll take you from where you are to where you want to be. Until next time.